Roulette player legend Benno Winkel provided a considerable sensation the German by large profits in the casinos of Germany and France within the 50s years. We show the story of the Benno Winkel here and we above all discuss very detailed its system, its tactics and its strategies with which it could make the large profits at the roulette. The German news magazine, Der Spiegel, has once a cover story dedicated to Benno Winkel even. The International Institute for Roulette Research has given it the honor name, conqueror of the casinos and the most successful player of our century. It can be addressed at the dearest, Roulette King. A Hamburg judge still was outraged, at it a year ago that himself with one, such unemployed art by the life a fully grown man beats. Even then Benno Winkel was elegantly dressed. To the court proceedings he had tied even his tie to a knot on recommendation of his lawyer to seem more serious. Otherwise he lets it dangle in an extravagant way not less than the shirt collar. Benno Winkel was, because accused of attempted deceit at the time it is, reached on a blurb with the heading, payable by 2 installments, a so-called diet system for the selling price of 50 marks he had offered. This system should be suitable according to the blurb to provide with a permanent additional income to all interested roulette friends with strong nerves and good concentration strength, at a working capital of only 120 marks. Benno Winkel, this one poses king the roulette with an actress single quote. Benno Winkel even guaranteed, I am ready you the deposit of 120 marks and an expense allowance of 20 marks, therefore altogether 165 marks, refund. Case preview against me, that your game capital has been lost or also only can be lost. The judge did not know that one of his retired colleagues in the casino Travagnier obtains a small additional income with such a diet system, almost daily. The lost chances are just as little as the profits since the diet player operates only with smallest uses. Benno Winkel defended himself very skillfully with samples of the appropriate scientific literature on probability calculuses and laws of chance. As a forensic expert the Hamburg professor of mathematics had provided itself with drive. Lothar Kolatz. Benno Winkel's rejected an autodidactic system thesis at sovereignly under reference to the empirical principle of the deceased professor for aerodynamics and applied mathematics at Harvard University in Boston, Richard of Ms. We just work with the strictly speaking not checkable assumption of the impossibility of a system of play, because it is suggested by the countless tests of unhappy system players. Benno Winkel hid from an opportune restraint that he had at that time over 100,000 marks by system games earned. Benno Winkel was finally acquitted after he to the evidence of the assertion, he is not a swindler but has seriously worked for years that had pushed with meters-long statistics and graphs. The realistic Professor Kolatz felt dizzy, it is a pity about the time which has been put into it. This appealed Benno Winkel to the contradiction in the hurt pride of the fanatic particularly, the time is not a pity with me but this is the meaning of my time. A teacher at a secondary school has sowed the shoot of this strange attitude to life at the Hamburg Wilhelm Secondary School 14 years ago. He did not maltreat his college youths only with slide rule and logarithmic tables but also with the combinatorics, the basis of the probability calculus, lying away from the real lessons quota. Most pupils could hardly follow. Only the mathematically highly talented rector son Benno Winkel understood this juggle with numbers and arithmetical progressions. The teacher at a secondary school had his pleasure of making a deductive talent from the pale son of the primary school headmaster removed from office in 1933, Max Benno Winkel, from J.S. Weldon to East Prussians. This mathematics sports took a sudden end when the Defense District Command sent an enlistment order to the Benno Winkel to November 30, 1942 into the parental flat. The army could not digest the slight boy, though. Because of acute stomach suffering the prevented recruit was found to be, from the point of view of time unsuitable, at all further after examinations. He did only not use this military service unfitness for medical health cures but stood in the middle of the total war. When his schoolmates heard whistling at the Eastern Front the stallion Orgel, with cheeks reddened hectically at the circling roulette of the gambling casinos. Also during the total war the gambling casinos remained open to Baden-Baden, Sopot and Baden at Vienna. In 1943 Benno Winkel made his first game to Baden in the casino at Vienna with small astuces. He had obtained insight into so-called classic roulette systems by then whose number over 1,000 is. In 1944 the Gestapo pecked the young gambler and shut him in a solid house for 4 weeks. On this he worked as a business employee for some months. In the whirl of the collapse finally landed Benno Winkel in Hamburg again and operated himself here in after-war business. Soon, however, this trade gave up again. He became owners of an écarté club and partners to 2 similar enterprises in 1950. He then pondered over his own systems in his studies cabinet, a kind of miniature museum of the roulette game, for months. What others have fixed in hundreds of rounds in front of him means he modified and tried to perfect. He also discovered among others his diet system, at which the jurists were surprised. Benno Winkel himself already played with greater endurance, as of 1952 and put at stake his whole reserves from 5,000 marks. The profits occurred increasingly, the longer he held out. He lost 150,000 marks in a week again, once, though, 2. He then wants further to have filed his systems, I have not only one but juggled with several, and explains his great winning streak by this filigree as of December last year. He played in dozens of casinos including Monte Carlo, where he won only 12,000 marks. Benno Winkel has a stack of 50 annual tickets he paid 5,000 marks for. However, he walked off with most profits in the casino Travemünde and to be more precise in several stages altogether 700,000 marks. Before any planned large-scale attack Benno Winkel has once all coups, hits, of the last weeks noted down. 8 observers work for him alone in Travemünde for a day's wages of 20 marks per person. He then draws the conclusion from the sequences of numbers noted down by them, so-called permanences, for his new attack. He compiles whole columns of numbers which shall contain a large number of hits according to the common probability laws. With few trains which claims, and therefore their chips exact surplus earn like Benno Winkel, amateur to be disappointed often to win much. Benno Winkel says, every professional player knows that he can play himself only in the form of waves. One must have a great endurance from time to time to come again onto the peak. Therefore Benno Winkel brings at least 50,000 marrow to the games table. The tension in the White Casino Palace at the Baltic Sea increased on the boiling point when also a second master of the system game, the Venus bookmaker Eric Puch, 43, still pounced upon the games tables of Travemünde with his group. Puch lets mainly his wife and his black-haired assistant Julian, Hildegard Hubner, 23, who is involved in the profit, work, on the green number carpet. You put stubbornly the sequence of numbers every day which he pushes to them on this piece of paper into his hand at noon. The atmosphere of the gaming hall imitates themselves. This one, the game is a power of its own, the think which, Puch Vernebelt remains in the background or looks to the diversion it films. Every dealing with man is by contract forbidden to his assistant so that the trade secret court of sight remains. The results of the systematic gang game let themselves be seen very soon. The casino Travemünde had approximately 1,250,000 marks less gross takings than during the same month in the previous year from January until July. The 2 organized game syndicates have carried this sum away. After these balance sheets the 31-year-old Benno Winkel presented twice as old casino director Henry Nade to it the supply at the beginning of August. He, the roulette king, will immediately move away from Travemünde and never come back with his whole staff, if the bank exposes a monthly life annuity of 50,000 marks to him and in addition involves him in the annual earnings with about 10%. Director Node only stroked his well-knit beard and said, "This is well a joke." Node would creep the everyone the roulette game, since his youth knows, adheres to the version, nothing